So today I want to cover off two different themes, quite far apart, but there's a reason to cover them both. 5G, one of the things that I like to focus on is that opportunity because it should be a big theme over the next couple of years. And the other one is the agriculture theme. It's been beaten down for a while, and we heard from ConAgra this morning. So just wanted to go back in and start to look at some of those names. So we're going to cover that off today. And just to start off with, one of the things that's interesting is oil services and oil stocks both had hammer candles today. So I just wanted to point that out. It's an interesting place. Again, if oil was going to get much weaker, it's had pretty much every excuse to break down with the coronavirus issues and the global slowing of trade, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still working. So anyway, on the 5G, I think the removal of Huawei is an interesting one, and I wasn't sure if I spelled that right, but I want to go in and just keep refreshing the industry and make sure we're aware of what's changing. Obviously, Sprint had some big news on that about a week ago. Agriculture has been out of the news, but I wanted to find out if there was any stocks starting to look good there, so we're going to quickly do that. So let's jump over into, so here's the oil services index. What we see here are these hammer candles. Here's an example. There's another one down here. This one was a hammer candle, then it had a big wide reversal and then kept going. Here's a nice hammer candle and took off. And then the one on the end of January, and then look at the one today. So down at this level, we continue to get these hammer candles that are building. So I'm quite interested in this one to see if it can find support here again. If something was going to sell off, we had more than enough reason to do that. So a pretty important place on the chart. Anyway, don't give up on the oil names if you're at all interested in those. I'm just going to shrink that screen down. And then, so that was oil services, and this is the oil production stocks themselves. You can see they're below support, but we had a nice little doji down here. So all kinds of reasons to sell and keep going, and they didn't today. We're almost close to getting a PPO cross to the upside. So on a short-term basis, the oil stocks look interesting. And again, commodities, I like to play them very close to the lows so I can set my stop relatively tight. Okay, on the agriculture names here, so we've got a whole bunch of different ones in here. This is over the last month, and you can see it's been pretty ugly. Not a lot going on positive there. So up 5% and up 4%, and then all the rest pretty much getting pounded. So with that sort of ballast, there's not a lot of great stuff there, but let's go in and specifically look at the stocks on a 10 per page basis here, and just quickly roll through them. So this is Archer Daniels Midland. What we see on this particular name, it's been coming up, but it hasn't been able to do anything for 6 or 8 weeks. Now it looks like it's starting to wane a bit. We've got a PPO sell signal just showing up here to start the week. We'll find out if that keeps holding, but obviously we'd like to see that keep going higher, and it hasn't yet. Agco, this one has rolled over and now is testing horizontal support. So this one looks quite weak. On the weekly chart, we're going below zero here. So this is not one that I would look to enter anytime soon. Bungie, this one trading in a sideways channel, nothing really good to report there. Hard to want to buy that. And again, we don't have any real sort of momentum change going on the PPO. This was one of the reasons I started to get interested in looking at the names, was the big volume that we saw, almost double the volume over the last 6 months. Showed up last week, but we ended up closing in the lower half, if not near the lows. So it wasn't quite the hammer candle I was hoping for. ConAgra brand. So this one was the stock that gapped down today. And again, this chart is challenged. Let's just click on it, go change it to the weekly view. When we see this big picture where the stock just stalled at this $38 level, fell very, very hard in that September to December route in 2018, and has slowly been climbing back up, but we can see the drop here coming back right to test that long-term support. So one of the easy ways to do this, if you don't want to open the annotation tool, is to just put in your price in here. I usually pick a color like blue, otherwise it shows up pink on this particular graphing. But what you can see is a major horizontal support and resistance layer If this holds, that's great. If it got just barely above zero, and we can see the stock hasn't been that positive for a long time, if it's going to start to roll over, I definitely would want to avoid that. So I'd say that stock really needs to find some buyers to step in and hold it here. Otherwise, we've probably got more pain ahead. Okay, CF. So this fertilizer company, and the same thing here, we're at 37.5. I was just going to go in and put a horizontal line on there. But the issue we've got on these stocks, as you'll see as we go through, is they're all starting to roll over and they don't look that solid. It's not like any of them are really kind of starting a new uptrend to give us some confidence. So I think this is a pretty important area for the stock to hold here. If it can't hold it, I think I probably want to leave. And what you can see here is the PPO is now going below zero again. It could stay down here for 4 or 5 months and not do anything. So even if it held here, it doesn't mean I want to buy it. It just, the rest of the group doesn't seem to have any support. Okay, so on this, going down to Deere & Company, obviously the farm equipment manufacturer, you can see it tried to break through this 165 level, got up to 180. Now it's back to the 165 level. It hasn't been able to hold that, and we had this kind of gentle uptrend going here. Want to see Deere get going. It needs to bounce off zero right here. Don't want to see it go negative. FMC, specialty chemicals, you can just see this has been grinding higher here. Had a big surge in the last 2 weeks and has since traded sideways. It's not really that exciting a chart, but at least it's trending higher. IDEX Labs, this one is trading sideways, hasn't really been able to break out. A breakthrough $300 would probably be interesting. Maple Leaf Foods, this is a Canadian name. You could just see really choppy trading, has sudden jolts up and then sells it off. Sudden jolts up, sells it off. Sudden jolts down, buys it up. It's just too unpredictable, so not really a name I want to look to hold here. Moo, this is the agribusiness ETF in general, so it's kind of the average of all of these names. And what you see is a gentle uptrend here, but it's trying to hold the 40-week moving average again. It really needs to find support there. And looking in on Mosaic, what we see on Mosaic is at 17.5. This is major horizontal support. If you like to buy close to support, you're there. The real question would be, where do you set your stop? And I think the important thing would be if that number is going to break, you probably don't want your stop any lower than 1 ATR below the lowest low. So really, and the ATR in this case, I don't have it on the chart. The ATR, the average true range for the week, if you start breaking down by more than that, you probably want to let it go. But so far, it doesn't look like it wants to turn up yet, so it's a hard buy for me. Nutrien, this was a merger of a potash stock and Agrium. And so what we see here is this big horizontal level really needs to hold, call it $42. We're slipping under that. We're at $41.29. But again, just don't really like the overall shape of this now. When you think of all the challenges to feed the world, there's not enough land and we need all kinds of new production and that kind of stuff. These stocks should have some big uplift. They just don't seem to have it yet. Here's Pilgrim's Pride, and I put this red line on here. You can just see stock tries to get above it, fails again. So quite a difficult place here, as it looks like the food labels are about to break down again and just going below zero. SQM, this stock is trading sideways, trying to rally slightly into the $30 level up from the 28. Nothing great yet. That's one of the names that kind of starts to has potential. At least it's approaching above zero, and I think that might be one to look at. It's also got some lithium mining, so perhaps there's something there for it that would help it. Tyson Foods, the stock hasn't been going anywhere really for a long time, but since May of last year, we've kind of been, let's call it $84. We've been up to 93 and back to 76. So we're just kind of sitting in the range. We're sitting at $80 right now. It really needs to hold above 70 in my work to be something I want to buy. I don't like it because the PPO is about to go below zero. Okay, so a quick recap on ag. nothing going on, but we took a look at it. Just, it's important to go in and just kind of check and see if there's anything we like there. Now, I've done the same thing for 5G, and what we see on the 5G names, of course, is if you were going to be, looking to buy this whole sector, what you want to look for, or whole industry trend or theme, what we want to look for is the names that are holding up really well, even in the face of the pullback at the end of January there, where the markets were selling off a little bit. So with that, we have the opportunity to just check around. Sprint makes this bar candle here dwarfed, but there's 4 or 5 names that are trading up 15% this month in the last 1 month period here. And then quite a few of them up, but we also have quite a few of them not performing as well. So lots of them haven't done anything for a month. And I think as this thrust starts to get going, we need to make sure we're in the top performers. Now, Skyworks is down here. I mean, it's a great stock, a great chart, all that kind of stuff, but it's been out of favor for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Anyway, I thought I'd work through them and we could just see what's going on in the 5G names. So starting, these are just going to flow alphabetical. I don't have them sorted in any particular order, but here's Aptiv, and you can just see trying to hold the 40-week moving average, kind of rolling down already, double topped for the most part. So we had top back here in 2018, kind of doing the same thing now. And the uptrend in momentum has been broken. If it could start to bounce in around here, that would bring the momentum back to zero, give it a chance to start to go again. And we're holding right around the 40-week moving average, so a good place to watch. Amazon, since its breakout, it's been climbing every week. That's just a bullish chart. I like that one. Alibaba reported really good numbers. The chart, broke through this 211 range, got up to 231, pulled back for the coronavirus, and then what we see is a rally and then sideways for 2 weeks. So this is in a really important consolidation period here. If it can break out and start to turn to the upside, I think you want to own that every day, all day. Apple, even with the news that they were going to have earnings issues, that they were going to have shipping issues on the iPhone, probably shipping issues on most of the things they make, the stock's remarkably resilient. And so, some people would say, gee, Apple held up so well. Well, they also have a buyback in place to hold things up. So they, at one point, had issued a $75 billion buyback. I don't know how much of that they've exercised, but when you got a $75 billion vacuum, it'll probably keep most shares from falling wayside. Dell Technologies here. This is an interesting base. I like this. 5250, just setting up sideways. Momentum is starting to improve here. Would really like to see it get through this $57 level and start to take off. But even in here, you're breaking out to new 3-month highs. That would be nice to see. Still a downtrend in relative strength, so not quite as comfortable there. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, is really nothing going on. This is sideways for 2 years. We'll let somebody else own that one. Crown Castle, diversified REITs. This is just keeps pushing up higher. Big move last week and now consolidating. I think it's a little too late to buy it after that big $100 or $20 push higher. Equinix, diversified REIT, again pushing higher. Keysight Technologies, just rolling over here. Nothing quite... it doesn't look that structurally strong. It's trying to hold at the 40-week moving average, and it could definitely use that rate to pull back to the 40-week, bounce off the zero line in momentum and start to take off to the upside. Our full stochastic, every time it gets down to this 20, that's been a buy signal. So that's an interesting place on this chart to look for a little pop right here. Charter Communications, this uptrend continues to run, so nothing to sneeze at there. Really nice looking chart. And then Comcast Corp, what we see on this one, they've been just gently wiggling sideways, and of course they have the they've been as part of the media wars right now with all of the streaming services and over-the-top bundles. This is just trading sideways around 46. Nothing too exciting. So it gapped up, I don't know, early January, pulled right back, and now back to the middle of that range. Want to see that start to refocus and head higher. Bell is just breaking out to new 52-week highs as we speak, so that's probably as bullish as it gets. AT&T sideways so far, hasn't really started the move higher. TELUS Corporation broke out back in November. And as it broke out, it's just been a nice gentle ride higher. Verizon Communications, nothing for the last year really, $58 a year ago and $58 now. So just kind of grinding sideways. It has made a high, or has made a new high in that period, but nothing to really write home about. It gave it up right away. Digital Realty Trust, this one trying to push higher again. All of these had big surges last week. Google, the ticker symbol Alphabet, the company name now. I really liked it on the breakout through 1,300. We're over 1,500 now. Really nice move to the upside. And again, they got Waymo coming out this year probably as a separate IPO and a few other things. So I like that whole area. Rogers Communications, this one's another Canadian telecom trading sideways in here, right at the junction of the 10 and 40 week. Bell just broke out. TELUS has already broken out for a couple months. If this is going to start to break out, it's right here, right now. Interesting place to watch with the PPO at 0. Looking at Sprint, that was a huge move, and buyers are still picking up the stock this week, so that's nice. T-Mobile, same thing. Boom, boom, on our way. That merger being approved was a really big deal. Analog Devices, this one's trading sideways for the last 9-10 months. Broadcom, again, same thing, right? Sideways. Just can't really get the positive momentum that you would expect in these names. Intel, finally starting to take off. Big push. I think this was earnings. And then sideways for 4 or 5 weeks now. Really needs to kind of just build this flag and then start to take a look higher. Marvell Technology Group, sideways $22 to $27, trading in around the 24.5, 25. So nothing really outstanding there. Micron broke out of this big, beautiful base, made new 52-week highs, and really hasn't done anything since then. It's gently climbing. Let's not be too pessimistic, but just kind of walking the 50-day moving average, not really racing to get away. Corvo, big rollover here. So the gap up and then a run up over the next 3 months into the end of the year. And now it's been kind of falling for the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks now. Don't want to see that too much. Anyway, it's coming back to test this, the bottom of the gap up. I'd look for $95 to hold here. 95 to 100 might be an interesting place to try to pick it on a pullback, and then up it runs. Skyworks Solution had really nice numbers, popped up to new 5-year highs, ran up, and is now just consolidating around the 10-week. It's nothing particularly weak, but starting to get a PPO sell signal on momentum. I don't want to see this black trend line break here. If that continues, that would be a problem for me. Xilinx, this one's been in a downtrend for almost a year. Microsoft, this one just keeps getting bought up. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. So price earnings ratio 33%, EPS is earnings per share is $5.75. They too have a big buyback in place, so this stock isn't going to go down much with a big $45 billion vacuum. Vmware, nice horizontal congestion here. It's been holding and holding and holding. Now I think if it can start to break to the upside, a little push over previous highs of 162, that probably lights it up to get going and maybe go back and retest the all-time highs. American Tower, really big push here last week, nice surge and holding up around that 250. Again, the tower areas are expected to be one of the strong parts of the 5G network. SBA Communications, this one also gapped up, so lots of moves up in this space last week. Acacia, this one got bought out, so I've just left it on the chart till it no longer records. And then Arista Networks, nothing to really own here. 2-year sideways. Sienna Corp, this one's been grinding higher, but we were at $45 in March of last year. We're at $42.50 now. So nothing tremendous on the upside. Cisco, even though they bought, where are we? We bought Acacia. It hasn't done anything for the stock. We're still sitting in a sideways mode here trying to get going. Ericsson Telephone, U.S. government kind of said we wouldn't mind supporting these people to get going on their 5G. We don't want to buy Huawei. So maybe this stock can start to get some inertia, a little bit of a breakout here, and it'd be up to new 6-month highs. So keep an eye on that one. Corning, just a generally difficult chart to trade. Nothing I really like there. Nokia, same thing. Ugly with this big drop here from $5 to $3. It's trading at $4.25. Nothing really happy or healthy there. Looking in on Qualcomm, the big push up on the closure of the Apple lawsuit between the two of them, and pushed up, then rolled all the way back, and it's been on a gentle uptrend here, which looks pretty nice. I will say it hasn't done anything since November, which is a surprise when you consider that the markets have been making higher highs. Okay, Viave Solutions. Again, I like the uptrend here. Just seems like it's pausing, having trouble holding the 40-week moving average. This one looks like it wants to move a little bit lower. Okay, so with all of that, I would say the 5G is improving still. There's still some good names in there, but they're not as many as I thought there would be. That's probably the one surprise you can get by just going through all of the charts. And again, I've sorted these particular names by industry group, not so much their actual trading group, but went and just kind of said, what are all the companies related to 5G, and worked through it that way. So for the next couple of minutes, I just want to cover off some of the things going on the dashboard here. When you look in on commodities, they actually all had a positive day today, which I was quite surprised to see. Caught me off guard. You know, I just thought the US dollar's been so strong. I was kind of expecting these to start to pull back. Now, oil was flat, so at least it gave it a green color. But natural gas really popped up big off its major low. It's down around 20-year lows. And so today was one of the first pushes off of that low. I like that area there. Gold and silver had some really big trades today. Interesting how some of the stocks traded. They traded up early in the morning and back hard, even though gold and silver stayed up. Anyway, watching the commodities, again, they've all been beaten down. The oil names have been beaten down 20 or 30% since December. So that's a pretty huge drop. Now, the real question is, if they're going to start to turn up here, that's a nice place to start to pick them after a 20 or 25% pullback. Okay. Let's go look in on the small caps. One thing I will say on the small cap chart, it's been struggling to get through, but it's still, even on this intraday chart, 10-minute chart, you just see the uptrends are holding here. But what I want to watch for is, how does it behave around the 50-day moving average? Can it hold above that, or do we have to go all the way down to the 200 here? And I think if this chart starts to break down, look at where the PPO is. This is kind of a classic place where it rallies, tries to rally and can't, and then fails. So momentum gets too weak and it just starts to fall out of bed. That chart is much different than the chart from the large caps, right? So when we go look at whatever the S&P 500, just a much smoother run here. And these big name techs, again, like Apple, hardly moved, even on the news of, we're not going to meet our numbers. We're pulling back all of our discussions of our numbers, but their employees have gone back to work. So how pessimistic do you want to be? I don't think very pessimistic. I think you really want to kind of stay optimistic. They still have a great product. They're going to have a 5G phone in the fall. They're going to have more products coming out in the wearables category, more in the health. So it's still a strong name. Anyway, those names are holding everything up. I showed you the Amazon chart already and the Google chart when we went through the 5G names. Again, really, really strong areas of the market. So to see the overall market weaken here, those big names are going to have to break. And if there was a chance for them to start to break down, like if you were really starting to look for something to break, here's Apple, and, it's still holding up in that top range there. That's hardly something worth selling. And even if it came down anymore, wouldn't you want to buy it instead of sell it, knowing how strong their pipeline is coming into new phones in the fall. But it has run a long way. I'll give everybody that credit. I've been a little harder on Microsoft just as it's exploded higher and has actually started a parabolic push on its relative strength line. This Apple one is just kind of starting to trend off and go sideways here. I don't want to see it, when you have something that's moving up parabolically or at least outperforming and it stops outperforming. If you're a trader, that's when I like to step back and just move on to something else. So what does that mean? That means that when let's just click on the chart. When I start to see this long trend line that's gone here and it starts to break, then I probably want to sell. Now, I'll give you an example of one that didn't work very well. So this one's pretty much sitting right on the line here. If Apple started to underperform in a big way, then I'd want to be more cautious or buy some protection. So if it fell a little bit, I'm still okay while it just consolidates. Yeah, that'll work. Whatever. What am I doing wrong? 0219. That's what I'm trying to write. Okay. So with Apple, again, it started to get interesting here, but Microsoft is exactly the opposite. It just keeps working its way higher. This has been an unbelievable surge. So seeing these kind of big pushes to the upside, again, another name that pushed today was Tesla, another 7% up. Still got a little bit of room to go. As it gets up to test this prior high, I am really interested to watch. And we have examples like Beyond Meat. What you see is when you, I just need a few more months here. What you see is when you get this big surge and they tested the prior high, and then fell away, and then came back, and then they went on a big run here. And you can see it was almost like an exhaustion run, just straight up, and then just fell away. And on the way back down, I think, that was a pretty important place. But if you look at the relative strength trend, that also was starting to break right in that area. And it's those kind of things. Once you see this run start to fail, like that, then I want to start picking my spots for exit. So hopefully you're paying attention to that on these tech runs, and as they start to slow down, then you can try to take some money off the table and not give back too much. So with that, I want to say thank you for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesday and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. You can also see the recordings on the StockChartsTV YouTube page, and you can also find my US and Canadian market reviews on that same page. So down at the very bottom, pretty important place on the charts. I'm going to quickly whip back here. So oil stabilized on the news. I pointed it out there. If oil starts to break higher here, it's a pretty interesting place to get back on board after the big 20 or 25% sale. So thanks everybody for joining me. Have a great week in trading. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.